Lenore City Church and discussion. We're on chapter 3 of Colossians right now, and I believe we'll be able to get the whole chapter. It's another one of these chapters with what we used to be, what we are now, and how we conduct ourselves, practically speaking, with the basic principles and activities of being a Christian. And so much of the New Testament is about how we conduct ourselves as being a Christian. It's not about, are we feeling good or are we happy? Certainly, feeling good and happy come with spirituality and a relationship with the Lord in a deep way, not in a trivial sense of just emotions. But, let's just have a look and see what's going on here. Therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above. And he's talked about we're raised up with him in baptism to begin the new life. Romans 6, 3 and 4 talks about the same thing. If you've been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. We're under a heavenly regime. Our citizenship, as Paul puts it in Philippians, is in heaven. He's seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above, not on the things that are on the earth. That doesn't mean we don't pay any attention to earthly things. It simply means that our mind is fixed on. That's where we're mainly looking. Our filter, if you will, is there up in heaven. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. We're buried with Christ in baptism, raised to walk in newness of life. We're seated with Christ in the heavenly or in heavenly places, we find out. When Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory. When Jesus comes back, those who are his will be with him forever. Therefore, consider the members of your earthly body as dead to immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which amounts to idolatry. For it is because of these things that the wrath of God has come upon the sons of disobedience. And in them you also once walked when you were living in them. The Ephesian letter has many similar things, and Paul will tell them that they didn't learn Christ in the way that they had been living. But now you also put them all aside, anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive speech from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you laid aside the old self with its evil practices. We're straight up, yes is yes, no is no. Word is our bond type of folks, and have put on the new self, who's being renewed to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. Christ is the one who created us, and it's his image that we are conforming to, being transformed into. We commonly mention Romans 8:29 as the Father's intention for us to become conformed to the image of his Son. A renewal in which there is no distinction between Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian and Scythian, slave and free man, but Christ is all and in all. There are no second-class citizens. There are different roles at times, but no second-class superiority, inferiority things going on here. Who have been chosen by God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another. People can be so aggravating. We can be so aggravating. To bear with people, not excusing their sins, not enabling their sinfulness, but cutting some breaks and being patient as we try to work ourselves through spots and difficulties, and we're not always at our best. Bearing with one another, forgiving each other, whoever has complained against anyone, just as the Lord forgave you. That's a sobering thought right there. So also should you. Beyond all these things, put on love. And Paul describes this at length in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through verse 9a. The perfect bond of unity. It's an exacting standard, this love. It's not just some frivolous emotion. What's love got to do with it? Pretty much it has to do with everything. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body. The church is supposed to have a unity. It's not, well, which one do you like best, or what suits you? It's, how do we suit Christ? Let the word of Christ richly dwell within you with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with thankfulness in your hearts to God. Singing, as it is here in Ephesians 5:18 and 19, is largely a teaching exercise. It's not a feel-good exercise, so we can feel good about singing. It's not something that is done primarily to address our emotions, though singing certainly can. But we teach one another the things about Jesus, one to another, that we want to keep in our minds and our hearts. And in all of this, we are to do all in the name of Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. Wives, be subject to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord. This doesn't mean slavery. This isn't an inferiority, superiority thing. It is a role, relationship thing. Husbands, love your wives and do not be embittered against them. Children, be obedient to your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. Ephesians says, in the Lord. The things that are suitable for Jesus are the things that children need to make sure that they obey. If our parents want us to do nefarious, crazy stuff, no, not that. Fathers, do not exasperate your children so they will not lose heart, beating them to pieces and yelling at them all the time and intimidating them, making them afraid of you. That's not Christian fatherhood and parenting. Slaves, in all things obey those who are your masters. This is more a bond-slave situation, not what we sometimes associate with it on earth. Not with external service as those who merely please men, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. So in many ways, not always, in many ways, this is like you work for somebody and you do a good job. You don't slack. You don't try to just get by. Whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord, rather than for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. At the end of the day, we need to please Jesus in what we do when we serve others. For he who does wrong will receive the consequences of the wrong which he has done, and that without partiality. Everything's without partiality. So there we go. Kind of simple and yet challenging. We're supposed to behave ourselves. We're supposed to act like Jesus. We're supposed to have love. And it's pervasive. All the instructions that are given to Christians in the epistles, they harp on this. And yet sometimes it is in these very areas of interpersonal relationships and personal integrity and character and being like Jesus that Christianity falls. It will stand when these things stand. Oh, there. Come see us at Lenore City.